All right, everybody, welcome to Code Akron Q&A. My name is Kevin Lockett. For most of you does anybody know what Code Akron is? Have you heard of Code Akron? Peter knows. Code Akron is an organization that I started. I want to start a series of workshops. I kept on reading about the digital divide and the lack of diversity in a lot of tech companies across the country. And I figured, well, I can try to do something here in Akron. So the goal is to connect youth, urban youth, and minority professionals to the tech scene and startup scene in Akron. So we did a couple of programs last year, and which is basically for kids, and we'll have some things for kids coming up later this year. But also want to do more things with the adults for this year. So I'm going to have hopefully 2 of these. The next one probably won't be until the fall, because in between we'll have the kids stuff in between. So thank you everyone for showing up. First of all, I want to thank my sponsors. I want to thank the Launch League, who partnered with me on these events so far. We've done 3 of these, so that's thank you for them. OSC Tech Lab, which we're here, which is also part of the Launch League. Fire Pizza, who's next door. They donated all those pizzas over there, which is fantastic. Yeah, fantastic. So it'll be great. So I want to thank all our sponsors, and most of all, I want to thank all of you for showing up. So thank you. You didn't have to come here, but I'm glad you're here. So today we are talking to Roger Riddle from Unbox Akron. Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody. Hello, people. So I kidded Roger because I told him I found information about you in Akron since he relocated from Macon. I found a lot of information about him when he was in Macon, but he was born in Detroit. So I was going to ask him how many people he killed in Detroit, but I think that would be kind of rude.
So tell him why.
Because you're a witness protection. So I decided not to ask him about his witness protection life.
So he claimed there's information on me in Akron, there's information on me in Macon. There was nothing about Detroit.
There's nothing about you.
He was like, no matter how hard I searched, I just couldn't find nothing on you about Detroit.
Right. But I did find something about him in Detroit. And we'll start off this way. So you actually made a mixtape about Detroit. When you were making, you went back to Detroit, kind of see how your hometown was, and you created a mixtape of the songs that influenced your life. And you had Run DMC, you had Public Enemy, you had Yaz, and The City.
But it was very kind of tech.
Yeah.
Like early tech and hip hop.
Yeah. But there's one song I want to ask you about, which kind of stood out to me. You also put in I Need a Freak by Sexual Harassment. How did that impact your life as a child growing up in Detroit?
No, I remember the kind of like the bass line and how dark it was, and it was always a song that stood out to me. And we had a DJ named Electrifying Mojo in Detroit, and he would come on late at night, and anything goes. There was a lot of Funkadelic, a lot of Prince, and I remember hearing that song like late in the middle of the night. I would stay up and listen to the show and hearing it, and it was so different from everything else that I was hearing at the time that it just stuck with me. And I had always wanted to, like you say, because of the content of it, there's never a good time to work that song in. So that was about my only chance to play that song in the mix.
I was shocked. I was like, I need a freak. Okay. So we're going to get into Roger's. In the beginning of this, we're going to kind of talk about who Roger is, and then we're going to get into more of the marketing side of things with Unbox. So you have a friend named Flaco Torres,
yes,
back in Macon, and he wrote an article about you saying goodbye to Roger Riddle is bittersweet, because I think people you were a true Renaissance man in Macon. You were director of marketing for Moon Hanger. You helped with the Soapbox Derby down there. You co-founded a soccer club. You did a lot of entertainment writing. You did a lot of different things there. What did Macon give to you as a person and as a professional?
Macon was a small town. We were 98,000 people, and there are a lot of parallels between Macon, Akron, and Detroit in terms of, the city at one point boomed, and there was a lot going on, and then over the years, around the 70s, you see the decline of all of these cities. So there was a lot that I found in common there from home, and once I got here, I saw the parallels here again. But because it was such a small town, it was a good place to test things out. So a lot of the stuff that I've learned that I'm applying here with Unbox were things that I first, I didn't know what I was doing, but I was giving it a shot down there. And the ability to be able to get in touch with, like you said, like to write for the newspaper, to work on radio shows, to work on TV shows, and to learn how those things function and then turn around and be able to apply them here. Like more than anything else, that's what it gave me. Also, it gave me a great base of friends, because there were a lot of good people that I met down there who were very active. They wanted to do things to make their community come alive. And then I get here, and it's full of people like that. So it was just kind of like I was ready to jump in, like I was saying before we started rolling. Like I want to get this where I wanted to be, so I can jump in and team up with some folks to do some stuff here, like I was doing down there.
Right. So how does social media play into this? Because with Moonhanger, you were also in charge of digital content.
Right.
So like you said, you experiment a lot in making. So what type of things did you do down there that helped you get a grasp of social media, and how does that help you appear when using Unbox, using social media with Unbox?
One of the things that I learned, because how I ended up doing the marketing job for the Moonhanger Group. The Moonhanger Group was a restaurant group. We had four restaurants, a concert venue, which was a theater. It was like a classic theater that had been renovated. Kind of think the Civic Theater here, but on a smaller basis. And we had a catering business, and I was handling the social media for all of those. So what I learned was kind of how you are, the ins and outs of Facebook, and what you're doing with Facebook. What's going on with Facebook is, if you've heard talk of the algorithm, the Facebook algorithm, and how if you have a business page, you can post to your business page, maybe you aren't really getting the followings. I had to learn how that algorithm comes into play when you're making a post, like what actually happens. What should you do? What I learned was you need to do a bunch of things. You can do just a text post, see how your readers, the people who follow you respond to that. Do a post with a link in it, see how they respond to that. Do a post with a picture, see how they respond, and then start to mix it up. Do a picture with the link. So don't let the link box show, but do a picture, see how that responds. Over time, they've kind of changed things. Right now, Facebook is very video driven. They want you to post videos. So, they're going to show more of, if you post a video, more of your followers are likely to see it. But also what happens is, as people like or comment or share, they start to see more of your stuff. If they like more of your pictures, they're going to see more of your pictures come through. So you want to mix these things up. Those are things that I've learned. Also, the back end, advertising-wise, when you do a Facebook ad, there's a lot of things that I ended up learning how to do. You can target an ad so close, you can get really, really close to the people who you want to reach through a Facebook ad. And initially, our way of doing it was to boost a post. And it used to be a time where you would boost a post, and the people who like your page see the post. Then it got to a point where you can expand out. You can say like, well, hey, I want the whole state of Ohio, or I want just the city of Akron, or you can say like, I want certain states. If you know who you're marketing to, you can narrow it down. You can say like, hey, I want only the people who have an iPhone to see this, or I want, I specialize, if I'm a novelist, I want people who read books and read certain type of books or read certain authors. You can tell them like, go after the people, and so now you're starting to narrow it down. You're getting closer and closer to the demographic who is in your market, the people that you're going after. Those are things that I've learned. And now what you want to do is, you can do a content. This is probably the most important thing about a Facebook ad right now. If you do a blog post and there's a link in the blog post, or you get someone to go from the link on Facebook to your blog post, there's a pixel, and the pixel allows them to record who goes to your website. You put this in the back end in your programming on your website, and they'll say, okay, well, we know now this person has been by. So instead of just doing an ad that blasts open to whoever's out there, even if you've narrowed it down, now you know if they went to your webpage, they're interested. And you can tell that ad only showed to people who've already been to my website and looked at this page. So you're getting even, you know they're already interested in you. And so now you're even getting closer to that sale because, you know, you keep showing them like, hey, remember you went, you looked at this, so they're more likely to buy because they're interested because they went to your website. So those are kind of the things I've learned along the way and how I'm applying it now here.
So like I said, so Macon was fantastic for you, but one day your friend Chris Horn, who you were friends with Macon, had moved here to Akron.
Right.
Now before Chris moved to Akron, did you know anything about Akron?
Before Chris moved, my father was a truck driver for Roadway Express, and what I knew about Akron was that the headquarters of Roadway was here. That's all I really knew about Akron.
How long did you drive a truck?
Oh man, he retired in '97, and man, I want to say like he probably drove a truck for like 25, 30 years or something like that.
Did you ever want to drive a truck?
Not really. I think I like briefly kind of thought about it, but just I think I was more so interested in the traveling than the actual truck driving. I wanted it as opposed to making that long haul. Now I tell you, driving the U-Haul truck from Macon to Akron was no fun. I wouldn't have survived as a long haul driver.
It's interesting, you know, because we're going to get to unbox in a second. I know so many people who moved from Akron to Atlanta, or Akron to Georgia. You're like the first person, and Chris is like the first people I know who actually moved from Georgia to Akron. Like usually it's been the complete opposite for many years.
I've heard that a lot. It's kind of like, oh my God, you moved here? Why? Why did you do it? Yeah. But I as I was saying before we got started, I'm excited about Akron. I'm excited about a lot of things that I see. There's a lot of different things going on that to me looks like growth in the city that I didn't see in Macon. And I was talking to a guy who said, like, you know, I'm an older dude, and when I look at these buildings around town that are empty, I look at them and I see what used to be there. And you guys, you younger folks, you're full of ideas and you're full of passion. You look at these empty buildings and see what may be. And so there's a mindset for a lot of people. They are looking at these buildings or they're looking at the city and seeing what it used to be and not really looking for a future, while I'm coming in looking for that future, which gives me an opportunity to kind of grab things and shape them and point them in different directions. And hopefully, you know, I get to stick around and do a lot of that here.
Right. So Chris contacted you one day while you were in Macon and said, listen, I have an idea for the Double Strip. I have an idea for a newspaper. I think, did you talk about a box at that time?
Not at that time. No. So Chris and I both wrote for a newspaper that was similar to what the Double Strip is now. It's called the 11th Hour. It's the alternative newspaper there in Macon. And we loved it. It was a lot of fun. It was what you picked up because the daily newspaper wasn't going to do the stories on the bands and on the restaurants, the people that we knew that were actually on the ground doing things. Their story wasn't getting told. This was the only place that was telling those stories at the time. And Chris was writing for him, and then he became the editor for the newspaper. So when he left and he moved up here, he initially started working for a television station in Cleveland. And then he decided, like, he just wasn't happy. He was doing the social media for a television station in Cleveland. He wasn't happy, and he was like, you know, I really want to do this newspaper. And he mentioned it to me, like, I'm going to get it started. Of course, I was like, I knew he was good. I was like, go for it, man, do it. Like, I'm sure you'll enjoy it, and you'll get it rolling. And he did that. And then, I want to say maybe it was about 6-7 months in on that, he contacted me. At first, he contacted me and said, I got an idea for a subscription box. I want to do a subscription box, but I'm not exactly sure what I should do. And because he was a writer, I said, well, hey, what about a writer's box? I've not seen one of those. What would a writer want to get each month? Like, how would you appeal to a writer? And we kind of left it at that. And then the next time he contacted me, he said, I'm a finalist for a grant for the subscription box, and it's going to be all about Akron. And I was like, oh, that's cool. And then the next thing I know, he was like, I got it. You want to come work on it? And I was like, hey, man, I'm on my way. That sounds fantastic. Plus, I had gotten kind of bored with making. I felt like I had done as much as I could do and couldn't move forward anymore. I was still doing things, but I wasn't seeing kind of that next step up or to moving on to the next thing. It was just kind of like I hit a baseline and couldn't get any further than that. So I packed up and headed up here, and wasn't quite sure what I was getting myself into, but I knew I enjoyed working with Chris, and I knew that this was, it was going to be a lot of fun. So it was going to be something new and different. I could try my hand at it, and it was marketing, which is something that I was already doing.
So we talked before we started here. We were talking about subscription boxes, and it's a growing industry in a lot of ways because there's some many subscription boxes I like because they give you like a pair of socks and ties every month for a fee. And there's Loot Crate. Loot Crate is a geeky type of box where they send you geeky things. They have a theme every month. But like for $20, you get a bunch of box of stuff. So you have Unbox. Unbox is different because it's localized,
Right.
while these other companies are national. So in a lot of ways, what was the marketing plan for Unbox? Because now you're trying to convince Akronites to buy a box of stuff, being in Akron, which people should jump on that, but it's new. It's new. We don't have subscription boxes here. Most cities I don't think have subscription boxes. So what was the marketing plan like to attract an audience, to convince them, hey, you got cool stuff here in Akron, and just to pay a fee and get these things.
There are a couple of cities that I've run across that have subscription boxes. There's a Baltimore box and there's an Austin box. And of course we looked at them and we were kind of saying like, how do they do what they do? How do they pull it off? And a lot of what we found was that it's about a sense of pride in these cities. And once you tap into that pride, then you're starting down that route. So if there's, for us, what we needed was, we need people who love Akron was kind of our large demographic. We need people who love Akron. And we looked at two different groups. There are going to be a group of people who live here in the city, and there are going to be a group of people who live outside of the city. And maybe they miss home, and you want to send them a box that says, like, hey, this is what's going on at home. And it's really easy to do the things that everyone knows, but once you get the stuff that everyone knows, once you get these things, then you're kind of done. You've already, it's fun at first. You open it up, but you're like, I already know this stuff. So we were kind of like, well, we want to introduce them to something new. And what did we appreciate? Well, we were lucky in the sense that Chris was publishing the double strip. He had a following already that you could talk to and look at how they responded to different parts of the paper. Well, we knew that people were really into the music scene around here. We knew that people were into art. We knew different little things that, wildly we would pay attention to. Like if Chris made a post about Lawson's chip dip, it went crazy. We were like, what is it about this chip dip that everybody loves? Well, it's a reminder of their childhood. A lot of people think like this is something that was a piece of my childhood, and you start to look at those things like people want to remember, things that are good. So maybe it's not all new. You throw in something. People have a sense like people love the history of Akron. Like if you post an old picture and people get to say like, oh, well, I know where that is. That's, at such and such street. Now this building is there, or this business is there now, and that's what it used to look like. So, okay, we want to tie in music, we want to tie in art, we want to tie in history. We want to introduce you to new businesses that maybe do things similar to those businesses that you love. So you can be like, oh, I didn't know that this existed. And that was how we were focusing, like how we were going to get this box to people and get people interested in it. It was kind of like, we're going to tie all these things together. One of my favorite things that we did was one month we did a set of rubber duckies in the box, like bath toys, like little rubber ducks. And the reason behind this was the rubber ducks were holding bowling balls and bowling pins.
Awesome.
And so we were kind of like, what did you know? Like we do a little booklet that talks about everything. It's like, did you know the rubber duck as a toy was first created and manufactured in Akron in the 50s. At the same time in the 50s, the Pro Bowling Association was founded in Akron. So you tie these two things together and you pull it out, and hopefully you look at it and like, why are these rubber ducks in there? And then you look at the book and you're like, oh my God, I didn't know that. And then you turn around and you tell somebody else. It's like, one day maybe in conversation, somebody's like, hey, you want to go bowling? And you're like, did you know Did you know? We hope that's the type of response we're getting out of people.
Right.
And the first one we did, I actually forgot to put the trivia in there. We put a bunch of dum-dum suckers in the box. And then I didn't say anything about it. We were like, I wonder if anybody understood why those dum-dums were in there. But we found out that dum-dums were created by the Akron Candy Company. So we do little fun things like that, along with the fact that we're saying like, hey, there are these new businesses, or here's a photographer maybe you've never heard of, and we do a set of postcards, and maybe it's from a photographer. Last month we worked with the library special collection to do vintage pictures of old restaurants. So once again, tying back into that history, it's kind of like, oh, I remember Yakamini's. I used to eat here as a kid. Or I've never heard of Marcel's. What was that? And there's a little bit of info on the back of the postcard. And then you get to write on that postcard, put it in the mail, and send it to somebody. And then, hey, you moved away from Akron. Look at this. And you're kind of like, and of course, the Unbox logo is on there. And unboxakron.com is on there. So hopefully you're leading that person this way back to you.
Yeah, so how does feedback work? Because you have to gauge how people are either liking the box, not liking the box, what they like to see different. So how do you guys, do you use social media? Do you use surveys? I mean, do you do mailing cards? I mean, how do you get a feedback to find out how the box is engaging and connecting with?
So I'm about to give away some of my secrets. We aren't even there yet. And this is something that we're going to, but hopefully, I hope you all want to know these things. So we started out, we've been doing some surveys, and we kind of asked, like, hey, which of these items that were in this box, were your favorite? And you could vote on them, and we'll see like what level, like what people were into, what they were, and there's kind of a range of things. Wasn't always what we expected, and then we'll say, well, which of these items that were in here is the first time you've heard it? And then you ask a few other questions, but now I bought a subscription to Ladies Birchbox. If you're familiar with Birchbox is $10. You get a box that has like makeup and lotion and just kind of samples. And you get like 5 or 6. And everybody was like, they make a Birchbox for men, don't you? And I was like, yeah, I do. But I also happen to know that the majority of our subscribers are women. So a lot of women buy Birchbox. When I hear ladies talk about subscription boxes, they're talking about Birchbox. And I wanted to know, what is the experience like for a lady who gets Birchbox? And so I got it, and actually Nick's wife saw it come in. She was like, oh my God, who got Birchbox? And so I was like, well, sit down, open this box and let me watch you open it. And so she opened it up and she started talking about everything. So I was taking note of like, what is it like for this lady who obviously likes this box, and she gets excited over it. What's the experience for her? And what I found out that Birchbox does is, along with their survey, they'll say, okay, I want you to use the product and then come to our website and fill out a survey about the product. Tell me what you liked, what you didn't like. And then I'm sure Birchbox turns around and gives that information that they collect from their subscribers back to the manufacturer and say, here's the data on what we collected. And to entice the person to take the survey, they say, if you do, let's say you're subscribing and you get 5 things in the box, we need you to fill out 6 surveys. So you need 1 more. You got to get the box another month, and you get $10 that you can apply to your account. And they sell, so like you get a sample, but they also sell like the larger sizes. So if you like something, you get this $10. You're going to buy another box. You're going to make sure your subscription rolls over, and you're going to fill out all of this information that they can then turn around and give back to their manufacturers. And then you got $10 that you can spend. Of course, $10 isn't paying for much of anything. Maybe you can use it for another month's subscription. But if you have to find a product that you want to buy, that $10 you got to throw in probably another 15 to get the full size thing. So these are all kind of things. It's like, well, we've been wondering, like, all of the businesses that we put in this box, they want to know. They want to know who we've reached and what they thought. And it was like, it would be fantastic for us to kind of do the same thing. If we lead you, we're going to ask you to fill out a survey anyway. Well, hey, we can do the exact same thing. So that's where we're headed next, is to collect this data and then turn around and give it back to these businesses here so they can work on improving their the items that they make. And then kind of the same thing, like we can offer a bonus like, hey, if you fill out so many, maybe it goes towards off your off the next month's subscription or something like that. We haven't figured all of that out yet, but that's kind of the route we're headed in.
So you also do some cross-promotion things, cross-platform things. You have unboxing events where you go to different places. So how does that work exactly? Does the place contact you? Do you contact the place saying, hey, you like to reveal our next month's box? I mean, how does that go every month?
We contact them. A lot of them are people that we've met along the way, and you know, Chris may have had a relationship with them with the Double Strip. Maybe they're an advertiser, and you know, it's a restaurant or a bar that are kind of new. Not a lot of people know. And one of the things we want people to do is we want them to explore and learn different things about Akron, and that's a piece of it. Taking them somewhere that they've never been before. And we try to move it around so it's not always, we don't always, when we come to a place downtown, we don't always want to end up in Highland Square. You know, a lot of the places there. One of the places we did was the old 97 out in Kenmore, and people walked in and was like, oh my God, this place is gorgeous, and I never think to come over to Kenmore. I'm glad you came. I think you brought us out here. So we'll contact them and say, hey, you know, we want to do a pickup party where the members can get their boxes. Some members want to pick up their box instead of us putting it in the mail, and you get it a couple of days earlier than the people who were getting it in the mail. And it's fun in the sense that you get to open them up with other people. So it's more, you know, it's you and some people you know, and you're all opening your boxes together and ooh and ah as you're pulling the stuff out, which we accomplish two things. You know, there's this sense of community in that I get to meet other people that are like me who subscribe, and then we also get to introduce them to a place that maybe they've never been to before.
Right. There's a lot of human behavior in this, but it kind of comes back to DJing, because as a DJ, you have to make sure, watching the dance floor, playing your music, if people are coming to the dance floor, songs that you're playing, it's going to be a long night.
Yes.
But at the same time, you wrote something a long time ago where you said that you played a lot of hits, like 70s and 80s songs, but you almost retired just because you were getting bored. Like the fans, like the people on the dance floor liked it, but you were getting bored. So how, as a marketer, do you find that level where you're giving the audience what they want, but at the same time, you want to keep on pushing the envelope and stay creative, just trying to balance the two?
It was kind of what I was saying earlier is you find those things that you know people like. I'm really not opposed to playing the hit song that everyone recognizes. Just don't want to play. I want to play the hit song 3 times in a night. I want to play that same song every time I go out. I wouldn't want to I want to one day have Swenson's in the box, but I don't want something representing Swenson's in every box, because like I said, you get bored. But it's also recognizable. It's fun to say like, oh, I love this. So how do you do it in a creative way? And a lot of the things that we kind of think about is, how do you make each thing that's in this box is kind of like a business card or a calling card for the company. You want whoever opens this box to be introduced to something in a creative way. So a lot of times we'll talk to a business and say like, okay, well, what are you trying to do? Do you want to introduce yourself to new customers, or do you want to you got a slow night? Maybe we should look at a slow night. How do we get people to you on this slow night? Or, you know, if you want to sell your product, how do we do something creative in a way? And so there's a lot of interaction with the company to say like, what do you think? You know, how should we go about this? And also the idea of tying it all together with the themes. Like February's box was the big Blimpin box, and we talked all about blimps. March's box was the Snackrin box, and we talked about snacks. So tying maybe something that's familiar with something that's new, and tying all of that together in a package becomes a lot of fun. And you know, you have to think creatively on how you're going to make all these things work together in this box. So that's probably the best way to say, like, it's cool to include something that everyone knows, just don't overdo it, and then also do it in a creative way, a new way, something that maybe they haven't done before. Pair up with them and say, like, let's create something brand new. Like, maybe you got a keychain, but let's figure out a way to do something that your customers haven't seen and our folks wouldn't expect.
So how do you go about finding people to add things to the box? I mean, do people submit things to you, or do you get the payment walking around Akron, or do you go on websites? What's the process of someone submitting something to the box every month?
Yes, it's all, it's every bit of that.
Yes.
I've just walked in places, looked around, and said, "Man, this is cool. I want to work with you." Give them a business card, like tell them what we do. I've had people call me and say, "I want to be in the box. Here, take this, put it in the box." I've called people and say, like, "I understand you can't give me, 100 pieces of something to go in this box. Can I buy it from you at wholesale, or maybe some at cost?" Maybe, a lot of times people are looking at it as a marketing expense. Sometimes, people are saying like, "Well, I'm so small, I can't really do that." And you find a way to work it that's unique enough and it's creative enough, and that, there's a lot of something, there's something there that you want people to see and get to know. We're lucky in the sense that we got that grant from the Knight Foundation, so we have a little bit of capital to kind of push things along. So we can say like, okay, well, we can do this at wholesale for you, or a bigger company comes along, it's like they got a little bit of a marketing budget, they can cut us a little bit of a deeper discount, which allows us to put a little bit more with these smaller places that aren't as well known. But it really is kind of like calling folks, emailing people, just, every sense of contacting and not being worried. Sometimes they say no, sometimes they ignore you, sometimes they're like, "Hell yeah, I want to be in the box." Like, they've heard about it, they're excited. And a lot of times people don't understand, you have to explain it, and they have to see it, and then all of a sudden they're like, "Oh, this is really cool." But, you never know. You never know what you're dealing with until you're talking to them, and it just doesn't hurt to talk.
Right. Let's go back across the platform for a second. You made a mixtape, a box mixtape called All Akron All the Time.
Yes.
Where you highlighted a lot of music acts in Akron. Let's go back to music for a second. You've been Macon had a little cool music scene down there, and you're from Detroit, and that's legendary when it comes to music. What do you think of the Akron music scene? How does it compare to some of the other areas that you live in?
Actually, I love Akron's music scene, right? Because of the fact that I made that mixtape, and then I also made one of the favorite things that I've done so far that went in the box was an Akron download card. So I contacted a bunch of different musical acts around town and was like, "Hey, I want to do an Akron download card." It's like a compilation. Back in the day, you would have done a compilation album or a CD or something like that. Now you can put it on a card, and you take the code, you go to a website, you type in your code, and you download these 10 songs. So I got with 10 different Akron bands, and was like, "Let me use one of your songs from your album." All these people already had like MP3s on Bandcamp or CD Baby or something like that, and I was like, I love what you do, and luckily, Chris, I had this idea that I wanted to do. If anyone is familiar with A Good Day in Harlem, the photograph, it's like all of the jazz musicians on the stoop. I wanted to recreate that picture for Macon with Macon musicians, and I could never pull it off. And I told Chris about this when we lived in Macon. I was like, "Look, I love this photograph, and I want to do it. I want to do it in Macon. We could never make it happen." Chris starts the double strip, and he does something similar. He sends me this picture. It was like, look, and it was just this huge picture full of people with like drums and guitars and basses and horns, and I was like, "This is incredible. I can't believe it." But what he did out of that was he built a file of every band that came in and was in that picture. Everybody. It was like what kind of music it was, what their website was, what their phone number was. So he gave it to me, and I started going through it, pulling up and listening to stuff, and I was like, "Oh my God, like Akron's music scene is all over the place." It's like, like there's some folk music, here's some hip hop, here's some rock and roll, here's some heavy metal, here's like a Cajun band, here's tons of jazz. I was so surprised by the amount of jazz. So I started contacting people, and it was kind of the same thing as I was saying earlier. Some people didn't understand what I was saying, just didn't respond, and it was just kind of like, "No, I'm not interested." But the people who did, were a lot of fun, and I ended up making that mixtape as a way of pulling together everyone and saying like this, I made this mix, and everyone started sharing it, and I was like, now I need some songs. I want to make this download card, and everybody was like, "Yeah, use this here, take this song." And I put together the download card and put it in the box, and it was a lot of fun. I got art on the card from a local artist. His name is Maximando Rivera, who works at Urban Eats. and then turned around and put the cards in the box. The extras I had, I gave them back to each artist. I gave them a stack of the cards and said, like, here, here's a stack of cards you can hand out. And of course, the card has the Unboxed Akron logo on it, and we got it sponsored by the Big Love Fest. We were working with them. It was kind of like, but we'll put your logo on it. And basically, I was talking to Zach. It was kind of like, help me find some bands, send some people to me. So that's something that I want to do over and over again as well, because there are so many bands here, and I would love to get to a point where I can do one of those every month. And as people put out new music, maybe you can get one song off a new album, and that's a good way of building the music community, building my connection with the music community, and hopefully getting them to help spread the message as I'm spreading their message.
Everett Comedy and Fitch used to do that, I think. They used to have like a CD of dance music. I think that was them.
Did they really?
I think so. Well, I was thinking that this music of is this the card you were talking about? The download?
Yes.
Yeah, so this is the download card he was talking about. So it's a cool card. Who made this card?
Dropcards.com. And you can do more than just music. Like, you could download, if you wanted to do art, like, you could do a portfolio of art and artists on this download card. Like, it doesn't have to be music. It could just be a collection of files. And it didn't cost a whole lot either. It was, I can't quite remember the price, but I remember I was blown away. I got 500 of these cards for very cheap. It might have been like around $100, something like that.
So how important are partnerships when it comes to new business, or just business in general, developing relationships that can also help you with your product? How partnerships have been so far in my lives?
We've actually, it's been great, because you have to look at every business that we work with. You're building a partnership, and how do you want to make sure you take care of them, you do them right, because they're putting their time and effort into giving you something to go in the box. You want to make sure you treat it kindly and show it off in the best possible way, so that people, when they open the box, they get excited about it. Hopefully they in turn head to the business's website and get some more information. But what we started to do is, each month when we do a box, all of the businesses that we work with, we do a profile on the business that we then post on our website. So a little more information, because we're planning for 135 members for the April box. We're going to ship out 135 boxes. That's a small number compared to our reach on social media and our reach through the Devil Strip. So if I can do something where I write a small article that gives a little light towards these businesses and then share it through our social media channels, they feel the added value in that I'm reaching an even wider audience now. Like, yes, it's great that, right now we're only at 135 boxes. That's kind of, it's big for the boxes, especially when you're talking about a small business, to say, I need 150 or something. Like, for a small business, that's a large number, but that's not a huge number in terms of reach. That's not something that's going to, they're going to go to work the next day and, there's a line waiting outside of the store or anything like that. But if you can turn around and then say, like, okay, these 135 people got it, but we got an article that now may have reached 2,000 people. Like, that's 2,000 eyes that got on you, that maybe those people have never heard you before. There's that little added extra benefit. And we hope in turn that they get excited about the fact that that's out there, and then they share it with their followers, so that we get it back from them. So there's that reciprocal on both ends, and just kind of showing them that, like, hey, we really do want to promote the things that are here in Akron and make Akron special.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about expanding the audience, just because the bulk of the audience is coming from the Devil Strip for people. But what if a person doesn't do the Devil Strip? How do you reach out to them, to connect with them, just kind of broaden your audience and try to get the box out to more people?
And oddly enough, Chris and I we just had this conversation. This is something that we hadn't done, and we kind of looked at each other and was like, how did we miss this? We have a newspaper and not once have we run an ad for unboxing it. And we just thought, like, we were embarrassed by each other. Like, we were sitting there like, oh my God, I can't believe
Well, that's why this is my figure. Okay,
we hadn't. Like we will share each other's stuff through like the Unbox social media channel. I'll make sure that like when something comes up on Double Strip, like I'll share it, and the Double Strip will share it, unboxing stuff. But we had never. And so now, actually, what this is something new for us going forward was kind of like we're going to start running an ad in the Double Strip that's kind of like just pictures of like here's what you missed last month in Unbox, and then a brief like maybe 500 word column where I do kind of highlight really quickly everyone that was in that box. Like here are these businesses, and kind of look at it from a business perspective. Like these are businesses around Akron that maybe you aren't familiar with, and that's kind of how we're going to approach that. But for us, like we've been building Unbox almost separate from the Double Strip. While like there's an obvious tie each month, I put a Double Strip in the box. Like the copy of the paper, I put the paper in the box. Because you never know if the people who are getting Unboxed actually pick up a copy of the Double Strip and read it. And so we tie those two together. And we do promotional items, like if I make pins, stickers, stuff like that, a lot of times, I'll do one for Unboxed, do one for the Double Strip as well. There are those ways in which we're kind of branding the two together to kind of realize like, hey, these are two separate businesses, but they're kind of tied together. This is sister corporations.
But it's small. I mean, you have a small staff. I mean, it's just like
It's me. I have a young lady named Rachel who works with me, and that's Unboxed. And then there's Chris, who, but his focus is on the newspaper, and Chris and I chat back and forth. But for the most part, I find the things that go in the box. I pack the box. I ship the box. I've got my hands on every piece of it. There's nothing. Rachel helps me write the profiles of the businesses, and we sit down and we talk ideas. Like we start looking at the months going forward, and we say like, okay, well, what businesses have you run across? What have I run across? And it helps a lot to have someone else to talk with about what you're doing, because if it was up to me, like if you ask me what restaurant I want to go to, I'm going to say Nepali Kitchen, and I'm going to say Nepali Kitchen almost every time. I'm like, I love Nepali Kitchen. But until, Rachel said, like, today we went to El Gato because for whatever reason, she loves El Gato. And we was like, yeah, let's do that. Because not that I don't like El Gato, I do. I just never think about it. My favorite restaurants, I like Nepali Kitchen, I like Thai food, I like Diamond Deli, and I will keep going to those three or else I'll go home and cook myself. But it helps to have that sounding board of someone that you can talk to say, like, I have these ideas, and say it to them and see what ideas that they come up with based on your ideas. You never know, you start to expand like that.
So since you're balancing so many different things, what social media tools do you use to kind of keep everything in check? Promote things, like what tools do you use?
One of the coolest ones that I've recently found it's called Missing Letter, and that's Missing Lettr. And Missing Letter, what it does is as you make a blog post, it automatically reads that blog post, and then it breaks up a bunch of different posts and will post them over the course of a year through Twitter or Facebook.
Magic!
Yeah, and so like it will pull the pictures out, and you have to do some fine tuning with it because it'll grab stuff out of the sidebar. Sometimes and it's not all automatic. You have to go through and prove which ones, but it makes it really simple to do. And you can put in code words. So like you want to say like, one went out the other day and it said like, want to learn more about Akron music, and then in the picture it'll do like quote pictures. So it's kind of like a quote that it pulls out of the text to highlight it. And this one said, sign up for our email. And I was like, how did I miss that? Right. But if you know that in the sidebar there's a headline that says sign up for our email, you can put in a word, you can put it in and say like, ignore sign up for our email, ignore. And it takes some fine tuning, but it will program out a post like every month or something like that and throw it back to your blog. So that one of the big things, a problem with Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram is that it's fast. Twitter is so fast, you got a couple of hours where that tweet is relevant. Facebook, you got 2 days. Instagram, right now it's kind of it moves not as fast as Twitter, but pretty fast. And there's nothing that keeps people in the long run going back to your website except, and this is something that not a lot of people use when they think about businesses or even think about in terms of this. Pinterest is the one social media website that is in it for the long game. Because when you do a search on Google and you look at the Google images, there are tons and tons of images that come up via Pinterest. And when you click on them, eventually you find your way to a website. So what you want to do is if you do a blog post and you put pictures into your blog post, you should have a Pinterest board that includes the pictures from that blog post. Because over time, as you start to build up those boards on Pinterest and people start to follow it as they repin stuff from you, they are going to then eventually find your blog and your website because of Pinterest. And it may be a year or more down the road. And that's one of the, Pinterest, you see spikes from Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And not so much Instagram. Facebook and Twitter, you see the spikes. Instagram, because you don't really have the links. Instagram is more about familiarity with your brand. But Pinterest, you don't see that spike early on. But over time, it's sending more and more people to your website. And once you can get them to your website, like I say, and I want to talk with you all about pixels. If you have a pixel on your website that says, hey, remember whoever comes, then you can turn around and say, they made it to my website, now I want to run a Facebook ad that's only showing the people who have been to the website. You can then turn it maybe it's someone brand new to you who found a photo through Pinterest that ends up at your website, and they clicked around and was like, oh, that's pretty cool, I learned something new. And then when they get back to Facebook, there's the ad saying hey, you like what you saw on my website, click this link, now you got an opportunity to sell to them. So the idea behind the pixels, and if you just do a Facebook search, pixels, and it's pretty easy to do. It's a small piece of code that you're going to put in the header of your website, and it's just going to collect the data on people that's coming through. But there's also there's Google has I believe it's called a tag bucket. Because you're going to need a pixel if you want to run ads through Facebook, Twitter, any of these other things. You have to put these codes. So that if you notice, if you go to a website, like you're looking at a new pair of shoes, and those shoes kind of follow you around the internet. You go to a website, there's a banner, and the shoes are there. And how does it happen? There's a little piece of code that's tracking you, obviously, and it knows what you've done. Google has, I believe it's called the tag bucket, and I will find out for sure, and I'll get that information to Kevin so he can get it out to you all. But this, instead of putting a piece of code for Facebook, for Twitter, for your banner ads, you put this one piece of code that's a Google code, and then the back end through your Google Analytics, you put in all of your other tags, pixels, any of those things. And it's all held in one space, so you don't have to keep going into your web code and updating it every time you want to change. If you want to track a particular item, you can do it all from this back end. So that's very helpful, and that's getting your targeting as close to your customer as you can. And those things are huge. So it's weird to think that Pinterest is important, but it is. It helps in the long run, and it helps to get people to your website. And then once you get them to your website, you want to be tracking who's come to your website so that you can put an ad in front of them because you know they're interested because they've been to your website. So the importance of writing a blog is that you have content and pictures, and then you want to share those pictures, of course, through all of your social media channels, but make sure you've got a Pinterest board that's all about, or multiple Pinterest boards. That talk about different things that you're doing, and then get them to your website, get them to your blog, because you don't want your social media to be all about, hey, here's what I have on sale at my website. You want to give content so that people feel like, oh, I'm learning something, and it's more shareable. People aren't likely to share an ad people are more likely to share content. And once they share that content, of course, they're spreading your word. You're getting more people to that website. So you need that content on your website so that you can turn around and get a very effective ad in front of somebody.
So what's the future of Unbox? I mean, still, you're not even a year. Has it been a year?
I have been here 8 months.
8 months. So what's the future? But the next couple of years looking forward, what type of things would you and Chris like to do with Unbox?
We see the opportunity for this to work in other cities. If we can make it work here, it can work in other cities. In fact, it wasn't shortly after we got it started, and we had kind of talked about this, but the focus was on Akron. But shortly after we got it started, we got an email from someone in Charleston, South Carolina, asking about a franchise. So we hope one day to be able to duplicate this in other cities, and ideally what we'll first do is try it out in some other night cities. And then from there, kind of say like, well, once we better understand the process of what does it take, how do you work with, what best works for us, take all of our best practices and apply them to another city and see how it responds there. And then from there, we can build a toolkit that we can sell as a franchise to help. And like I said, it's going to work best in the city where people have a lot of pride in the city. And that was the one great thing about Akron. Akron folks love Akron and love to show off Akron. And that has been a bigger piece of our marketing than anything else, is that people who love Akron get excited about this and then turn around and share it with their friends.
And finally, you said a quote a long time ago. You said, "Dance like no one is watching." Basically, doesn't matter if you dance or not dance, just get out there and dance for it, just enjoy yourself. What made you decide to become a DJ? Because I like to dance, but I always like the idea of the DJ. Like DJ is like fantastic because you're kind of like the conductor. You don't have to dance. People come to you, and you need to play some cool music. But what made you decide to become a DJ?
Once upon a time, I worked as a data analyst and a database programmer.
That sounds like a DJ path.
And I was working at the Ford World headquarters in Detroit. And then I left there and I started working for a tobacco company in Georgia. And I was miserable. And all my life I've loved computers, I've loved technology. I started programming computers at the age of 10. Like back in the days, like the 5 1/4 floppies, the big old floppies. Like that was what I used to save programs on. And one day I was sitting in my cubicle, just kind of looking around. I was like, if I have to spend 30 years of my life sitting in the cubicle, I'm going to go crazy. It's like, what would I do? And my question to myself was, if I had all of the money I needed to live on, what would I do? And I was like, I would play my records from my record collection. I'd listen to my records. And I was like, well, how do I make money listening to records? And I was like, I'll become a DJ. And I went broke. It was a terrible idea. Or it wasn't so much that it was a bad idea, because doing that got me where I am now. Like the path that I took was, the DJ, the promotion of myself, the promotion of the arts and music scene, which led me to, all of these connections, which led me into marketing. I started working for a restaurant group, and then all of those connections that I made along the way, and all of what I've learned along the way. One day, Chris says, "Hey, you want to do this?" So I couldn't have gotten there without doing that. But I think, looking back, if I could have done it a different way, if I could have DJ'd and had a steady job at the same time, it would have been a whole lot better.
Well, how old were you when you made that decision?
Probably about 26, 27.
That's late for it. Like you be DJs, you kind of college, or you kind of had an epiphany. But again, like you said, if you didn't make that decision, you wouldn't be where you are today.
Right.
Yeah.
So I had always kind of like I used to say, I always wanted to be a DJ, but I knew my parents were not going to pull me up the money for a DJ system. So once I had my own career and I bought all this DJ equipment that I wanted all my life, and all I did was sit around and play records and make mixes. And then one day I was like, I can do this. I'm decent enough. I could be a DJ, and there are no DJs in this town. So that's how that came about. And like I say, if I think back, I'd do it differently. I would, but like I said, I would never want to give up what I learned in that process all along the way.
And what type of equipment do you use?
Technique 1200 turntables. I have a rain mixer, and I use Serato Scratch to control MP3s through the turntables, because I don't want, I used to carry records all the time, and after up a flight of stairs, do a show that's up a flight of stairs for a year, and you'd be like, no. When digital DJs came about, I was the same way. I was kind of, I don't want to do it. And one day, I had a friend who had it, and I kept watching him like he didn't have to carry all of the records I did, and I was like, I think I'll do that. I think I'll make that switch. But it's still fun every now and then to break out the records. And when I'm at home, now actually it's better in the fact that my records really are my collector's pieces, and I get to listen to them as opposed to wearing them out, putting them in and out of boxes, and pulling them in and out of the sleeves like I used to. Now I can sit down and play them and wear out a digital copy as opposed to wearing out my vinyl.
All right. Well, that's Roger Riddle, everybody. Let's give him a hand. We're going to open it up for questions, and we have a surprise. Whoever has the best question will get the merch box from Unbox Akron. Your own box. So think hard for a question. So anybody have any questions?
Illmatic or 36 chambers?
36 chambers. Yeah, 36 chambers. 36 chambers was important. When I think about it, I know exactly where I am at the time. Like Illmatic for me was around that same time, but it was more in the background. Like I loved Wu-Tang. I went crazy over Wu-Tang when it first came out. And now when I look at it, though, I think like Nas's catalog is incredible, while Wu-Tang is here and there, but Nas is a bit more solid.
It is. Can't give him credit.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Anybody else have any questions?
First, what is the best resource to keep track of all these machinations with Facebook, with the algorithms, so that you can at least know,
there's not a good resource for it.
What your struggle is, I guess.
They keep the algorithms so hidden that no one knows. There's nothing out there that says like you should be doing this, and all it really is people testing it to find out what works, and then reading blog posts. I listened to a podcast called Social Media Examiner, and they do a good job. Social Media Examiner, first of all, they will tell you, they do a segment at the very beginning where they say, hey, I ran across this new app that in social media, here's what it does. So it's constantly saying like, here are some other resources that you can use that you can try out, maybe like them, maybe don't. But then they'll interview people across the spectrum. Maybe 1 week you'll hear somebody from Twitter, somebody from Facebook, somebody who's a Pinterest specialist, somebody who's in the Instagram. And a lot of times those conversations will say like, well, we've noticed this about the changes that have been made. But Facebook never releases anything. They keep it close to their chest in terms of what they actually do. So it's a matter of finding the marketing blogs and social media blogs out there and reading them and finding out kind of what everybody is thinking, and then testing it yourself to see if you feel like there's been a change. Lately, something has happened. There's been a little bit of difference in probably about the last month, I think.
You used to be able to log in as your page, and then the page would have its own feed.
Yeah.
Because you could just pick up what you needed for that feed. But now you can't. You can only log in as yourself personally, and then you have to go through all that. Everybody else has seen that too?
I ran across the feed for the page once since that change happened, and I couldn't figure out how I did it. I clicked something and didn't know I had done it, and all of a sudden I was like, oh, here it is. But I've never been able to figure out how to get back to it since then. But yeah, I agree. I know exactly what you mean. It used to be really easy to figure out the other pages your page followed if you wanted to share stuff from them, the content from them. And like you said, now you kind of have to, keep a middle note of who I want to go look at and share it from their page, or hope you run across it in your own timeline, which is, like you say, is always busy and you never know, or even if you're going to see it at all in your timeline. But yeah, there's no easy resource to see what changes the Facebook has made to the algorithm. Sorry.
Facebook is one of those weird things. It's one of the few, the platforms where you actually have to have a personal page first, and then you can have, or
Yes.
you have to have a personal identity, and then you can have business pages.
Right.
So you don't have to do that on Twitter. You don't have to do that anywhere else. So it's almost like you have to be who you are, and you have to be following everything that your business is doing anyway. So, unfortunately, and especially now that they get rid of the business pages, there is no feed now.
Right.
You kind of have to do that for all the pages that you.
And I find it interesting that, like you said, like you don't have to do that with all the other pages, and you would think that would be a downside, but Facebook is always strong. It's the most used, and you hope that. I really hoped at one point that Twitter was going to kind of step up and become something more. And I've heard rumors that because Google Plus failed, that Google is interested in buying Twitter. Twitter is like falling on such hard times that you may see some sort of combination of Google Plus and Twitter. But I don't know. Like it's in such a rumor phase that I don't know if that's going to happen or not. And I have no idea what changes will come with that. So here's hoping that something will come along that's a bit more effective than Facebook that we can get to one day that help us better reach the customers that follow us on social media.
I noticed that for both of those entities, Twitter and Facebook, you can create lists that can sort of take the place of some of the feeds, but you have to get out when it's kind of a.
And there are. It's really hard. I haven't used the Facebook list because it seems kind of clunky to me. Twitter is very hard. Like you have to, you kind of have to build those lists almost from inception of the account for them to make it easy on you, or else you have to go back and find like how far down someone is in your Twitter followers before you can get to them. Like you have to go through almost the whole list and one by one click it. But there are a few apps out there that help you better manage Twitter lists, and right now I cannot think of the names of them. But I will. That's another thing that I'll give you if you keep up with Kevin Lockett here. I'll get him the information on the Google Tag bucket as well as the Tag Manager. Thank you. Google Tag Manager as well as some of these apps that I've run across for Twitter lists.
Does anybody else have any questions? Oh,
Yeah, keep going.
Sorry.
You really want this box? I can feel the energy.
I'll probably for quantity, not quality. What's your rule of thumb when you're writing a blog? Like 500 words, 5 paragraphs?
I actually don't mind a long blog if it's, if you're telling a really in-depth story. I'm not a person who will. I will read a long blog. Not everyone does. I think at the most, if you know your audience and you know they are the type of people that are going to read something long, at the most you want to do 700, 500 words is really short and quick. But like I also feel like 500 words limits you. I don't know if you can get it. I always feel like I can't get enough information across the 500 words. But around the 700 word mark seems to be a sweet spot in terms of how much information I can get into it and it being a very short read. So I would say 700 at the most, unless I don't know, like Summit Art Space, I would imagine, you said Summit Art Space, didn't you? Okay, so I would imagine very artistic-minded people, would they be open to a longer read? Or do you know yet? You have no idea? I would test it out. Like,
Yeah.
do a longer, maybe you want to do 1,000-word piece and see, like leave some sort of link towards the end to see how many people make it to the bottom, and see how many people click that link. and that's the easiest way to tell. Like, do one at 500, do one at 700, do one at 1,000. Put a link at the end to see who makes it to those links. Do a different link in each one so that you can track and figure out, you know. But my guess is that you're gonna find like maybe your followers don't mind a long reading.
Anything else? Anybody else? All right. Well, even though I did enjoy the Nas Wu-Tang question, because I'm a hip hop head, she mentioned algorithms, so algorithms win. What are these? Let me know. Go to Kodak, at Kevin Lockett. Tell me what you think about this.
Go to unboxakron.com and sign up for a subscription.
Yep. I've been tweeting questions out while I'm sitting here. I was also tweeting out questions beforehand, so there's some Kodak stuff out there, so check that out. And thank you everybody for showing up.
If you have any questions for me afterwards, I can be reached at roger.riddle@gmail.com.